Planet Dolan.
From rude store clerks to tactless teachers,
the Planet Dolan crew reenacts some of the best true stories from our subreddit about the most unprofessional things we've ever experienced.
I'm Nixxiom.
And I'm Doopy.
And today, we'll both be narrating.
Number 10 was submitted by Solowolfbadass. The worst experience Andy Mations had was when she went with her mom to a parent-teacher conference. When she walked into the classroom, the teacher immediately said, "Oh, I didn't know your mom was an immigrant." Andy was so pissed off, but her mom told her in Spanish, "What did he say? Translate for me." She obviously didn't translate, but instead went up to her teacher and slapped him across the face and cursed him out in Spanish. He said, "You're one of them. If I could, I would give you an F, but I can call immigration, you little whore." He screamed it so loudly, everyone in the hallway heard what he said and called the principal. Andy explained what happened, and the principal immediately fired him.
Number 9 was submitted by ChubbyBun_. When Pandora first started at her current job, she needed some help with a part of the business she typically didn't deal with. So she walked across the building to the person she needed to talk to, and when she arrived at his cube, Pandora saw his dick in his hand and full-on porn on his computer screen. He tried to quickly close the tab and play it off like it didn't happen. She was so grossed out though that she just mumbled out an excuse and walked away quickly. He never looked her in the eye or talked to her ever since.
Number 8 was submitted by LunarChild96. After Melissa had gotten out of classes for the day, she went to a cafe near campus before going home because she was really hungry and couldn't wait. The cafe gave a student discount when an ID was shown, so she did. The man working at the register got angry and tore the ID in half. He yelled at her, calling her a privileged cunt and telling her to leave or else he would call the cops. Melissa didn't understand what was happening because she'd been to that cafe multiple times and nobody ever said anything when she gave her ID. She started crying and apologizing, then started to leave when the manager came out of the back and stopped her. She scolded the employee for cursing and trying to force her to leave. A couple of people she went to school with happened to be there and comforted her while glaring at the employee. The manager told the man they accepted student IDs and that he had no right to refuse someone. He was fired and told to leave for his inappropriate behavior, and Melissa got her lunch free of charge.
Number 7 was submitted by aquamarine-thunder. In 6th grade, MKLM's science teacher bragged that he used to be a professional gymnast, and since he would also occasionally teach the gym class, he would do backflips in front of the class to prove it. Now one day, he decided to do a backflip inside the science classroom for some reason. He didn't have enough room to complete the landing though, and his legs slammed into a counter full of chemicals, spilling them everywhere. The whole school needed to be evacuated because they were worried some of the fumes were toxic. It happened on the second to the last day of school, and it was MKLM's last year there, so he had no idea if the teacher was fired.
Number 6 was submitted by Slootydeathtech. Sid works for a medical examiner's office, and one day he went out on a pretty routine call. An elderly, ill man died at home, and it was their job to talk to the family, take photos, and get the body back to the morgue. They got to the house, and Sid and his partner introduced themselves to the family, then started their jobs. Sid was talking to the cops within earshot of the rest of the family. Cop number 1 started talking about the position the body was found in, mockingly, laughing and making crude gestures. The other laughed along. The deceased man's daughter could see and hear everything clearly. Sid told them that it was unprofessional, and cop number 1 shrugged his shoulders and said, "I think I would want to die too if I lived in a place this shitty." Then he left. Sid was embarrassed about their actions, and the poor family was more traumatized. He's dealt with plenty of shitty people, but nothing quite that mean.
Number 5 was submitted by Bubby56789. So Dolan had a coworker at a doctor's office that would go into the bathroom and be there for about an hour, and then he would come out like nothing ever happened. One day, Dolan went into the bathroom to see what was he up to. The door slowly was pushed open, and it completely exposed his coworker who was smuggling cocaine, which had been going on for a long time. The idiot had been sneaking drugs into the office in the bathroom for years, and no one ever knew. The man was fired on the spot, and the coke was confiscated.
Number 4 was submitted by Zebrawithabowtie. The most unprofessional thing Helbin ever experienced was when he was 10 and was at the dollar store with his dad. They were at the checkout line behind a fat woman who was buying a bag of powdered donuts. There was a problem with the cash register, so it had to buffer, and the lady said it would take about 7 minutes to do its thing. The fat woman complained a lot, so the cashier openly said, "It's not my fault you're a big fat ass who can't go 5 minutes without donuts." Helbin and his dad, being the horrible people they are, laughed so hard that it hurt, and the fat lady stormed out. They still laugh about it. God, that's so mean.
Number 3 was submitted by LycanthropeLass. Shima went to an interview at a company that sounded pretty dope. It was in a nice building in a nice part of town. She was dressed professionally, she had her resume and references ready, and she walked in feeling confident. But she didn't expect what was waiting for her behind the door. The room was full of people waiting to be interviewed. Some of them had been there for over 2 hours, and the staff that was supposed to be interviewing were something. There was a woman walking around in an oversized man's t-shirt with no pants on. There was some sort of movie blaring in the break room, which caused whoever was in the other room to shout into a phone. This then made whoever the hell was in the break room turn up the volume even more. So it was just a big shit show. But the worst part by far, was this one guy. He was just some dude, and he was going in and out of the room, and he was slowly licking gummy bears off the palm of his hand and giggling. Disgusting. Then he would stop and look at Shima and some of the other women before going in and out of the door that went from the office to the hallway. She was only there for half an hour, and then she left.
Number 2 was submitted by KalenaTheZodiac. An unprofessional experience Gooby had was when her and her family were at a fast food restaurant. While they were eating, they overheard a woman gossiping about some people, and as curious human-fish hybrids, they listened in. Until the woman and the other workers started having a cussing party. Gooby's dad got up and asked them politely to stop because he had children there, as Gooby was 6 at the time and her siblings were 3, 5, and 7. They stopped for a few minutes, then started back up. So her dad asked for the manager and they said, "Hell no, we don't want to get fired, go sit down." Her dad got angry and went to the manager's office, leaving Gooby and her siblings at the table. They heard them cussing, and they started repeating words without realizing what they were actually saying. Her dad finally came back from talking to the manager and heard them cussing. He said, "Don't ever say those words again." The workers looked and laughed. Then one of them shouted, "You need to work on your parenting skills." Gooby's dad was more angered than ever and clocked the man in the face before taking off in their car. They got 7 people fired that day.
And number 1 was submitted by me. I used to work at a grocery store, and at that store was a man named Robert. He was a legend among the people, but not for the reason you might think. Robert always had this tendency of going up to the female employees, and he would tell them about how, during break time, he would go into the bathroom and jack off. And apparently he thought they wanted to hear that, or something. Robert also sometimes would tell customers, for some reason. And the thing is he never got fired. Like, he was there the day I walked in the door and got the job. And he was there the day I left the job. And even today, he's still there. Maybe he's like the CEO's, like, special cousin or something. I don't know. Anyway, I can tell you this. People learned pretty quickly in this town, don't talk to Robert, because he's really creepy. He's really awkward.
Huge thanks to the folks over in our Planet Dolan subreddit for submitting their stories. We have another question for you. What's the dumbest thing your roommate's ever done? Let us know in the Reddit page linked below, and you might be featured in a future countdown.
This video was made possible by our fans over on Patreon. Thank you for the support, guys.
Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you soon.